everyone, I'm Tamika. Welcome to another episode of It's a Learning Life for Real. Today we are going to be talking about change. Specifically, we're going to be looking at some of the common responses that people have to change, and also I'm going to be sharing with you 7 tips that you can use to improve how you deal with change in your personal and professional life. So as we get started, take a second to hit the like button and subscribe so you'll never miss a post whenever I upload one. Are you struggling with change? Are you finding change difficult to handle in your life right now? If your answer to any of those questions is yes, you're not alone. Change is happening all around us. In fact, you've heard the quote that the only thing constant is change. And I think what we're seeing in today's environment, whether we're talking personal or professional, is that change is happening at a rapid pace. So rapid that some of us are struggling, even if we know how to deal with change, to cope and to keep up. So today I want to talk to you about some of the responses that people typically have to change. Some people struggle more than others, and how it is that we respond can make all the difference in terms of our chances for success at work and in our personal lives, and also the degree to which our lives are going to be stressful or stress-free. So I want to talk to you about some of the common responses that people have to change through the lens of a book I recently read, and the book is Who Moved My Cheese? It's a quick backdrop on Who Moved My Cheese. Who Moved My Cheese is an oldie but goodie that is written by Spencer Johnson. And it's one of the best books that I have read about dealing with change. It highlights some fundamental truths about change, how people respond to change, and also offers us some tips on how it is that we can deal with change more effectively. So just to borrow from the summary of the book, it is a story about 4 characters who live in a maze and look for cheese to nourish them and make them happy. 2 are mice named Sniff and Scurry, and 2 are little people. Cheese is a metaphor for what you want to have in life, whether it's a good job, a loving relationship, money, possessions, health, or spiritual peace of mind. And the maze is where you look for what you want, the organization you work in, or the family and community that you live in. So back to the story. These 4 characters, Hem, Haw, Sniff, and Scurry, live in the maze, and they live at Cheese Station C. And every single morning they turn up at cheese station at the Cheese Station C for their cheese. And all is fine in their world until one day they wake up. Sniff and Scurry get to the train station early in the morning to find that all the cheese that they have been using to nourish themselves and counting on has disappeared. And they immediately get into action and go back into the maze to find new cheese. Later in the morning, Hem and Haw, the 2 little person, turn up to Cheese Station C, and they notice that the cheese is gone. Unlike Sniff and Scurry, who acted very quickly and went back into the maze to search for cheese, they stand at Cheese Station C, looking around, wondering who moved the cheese, where had the cheese gone, thinking how unfair it was that somebody had just come and taken away their cheese, and just trying to figure out what had happened. So they are stuck at Cheese Station C rather than trying to find how to get new cheese. They're stuck. And this gives us a little insight into the different responses that people have to change. All 4 characters experience the same change. They turned up at the station and the cheese was no longer there, but their individual responses were different. So let's take a look at the different responses of the characters. First up is Sniff. Sniff had begun to notice over time that the amount of cheese at Cheese Station C was dwindling. So when he got to Cheese Station C and he saw that the cheese had disappeared, he wasn't surprised. He quickly, because he had noticed what was happening in his environment and what was happening with the cheese, he was not surprised, and he was able to jump into action. So there are some people on your work teams and also in your life who are, they keep assessing their environment and looking for change and staying ahead of the game. So those are the Sniffs of this world. Then you have the Scurries. The Scurry may not have seen that the change was coming, but once Scurry noticed that the cheese was gone, he didn't skip a beat. He was like, the cheese is gone, I need to find new cheese. So he jumps into action immediately and goes in search of new cheese. So Scurries are quick responders, and they are open and willing to change, even if it is that they never anticipated or know that changes was going to come or change was happening. And then you have the Hems and Haws. The Hem particularly, and the Haws, they show up as very resistant to change. When change happens, they're frustrated, they're confused, they play the blame game, they feel entitled to their situation. So because things have always been this way, they don't understand why you need to change the status quo. They don't want anything to change in their environment. They want things to remain the same. So when change happens, they have a hard time dealing with it. And some responses, like I said before, is finger pointing, blame game. They're confused, they're upset. But most of all, the common response is that they stay stuck. They're unable to move forward and take action so that they can solve the problems or deal with the change that they're facing. So Hems and Haws tend to be slow and resistant to change. Hems more so than Haws, but the typical reaction for Hem and Haw is that when they got to the station and they saw that their cheese was gone, they didn't act. They basically stood there questioning, being angry, being upset, being frustrated, and just basically feeling that they were victims and their cheese shouldn't have been taken from them. So having looked at these 4 characters, I want you to think about which character are you like? How do you show up when change happens in your life? Whether it's at work or in your personal life. Are you like Sniff, who spots the change early and you are not surprised when change happens and you kind of just are able to just move quickly? Or are you like Scurry? You may not have noticed that change was happening in the environment, but once it comes to your attention, you jump into action and you're solutions oriented and you're trying to make that change work for you, or you're trying to come up with a situation, with a solution that's going to solve your problem or help you to be able to get what you want. Or are you like Hem? Hems are people who are resistant to change. They have a hard time dealing with change to their environment, to the status quo, to how they work, anything at all. They find it difficult and painful, and they're typically resistant to change, unable to move on. And Haws, to be fair to Haws may initially be resistant to change, but once it is that you can show the Haws what's in it for them, they are able to open their minds to the change, and they're what you call slow adapters, because eventually they get the what's in it for me, they see why the change is going to be beneficial, and once they get to understand that, then they're able to take the action which is going to lead them to an improved situation. So which character are you? What characters have you seen in your environment, whether it's at work or at home, in your family or with your friends? Who are the Sniffs? Who are the Scurries? Who are the Hems? Who are the Haws? And if it is that you're any one of the characters, what would you do differently now that you recognize that you don't respond to change that well? Let's talk about how you might better deal with change or get better at dealing with change. So having shared the 4 characters from Who Moved My Cheese and the different responses that they had to change, let's talk about some of the tips that Spencer Johnson offered up, which I find timeless in terms of their applicability to how we might respond or deal with change in our environment today. And the first tip that Spencer Johnson offers up in terms of how we might get better at dealing with change is that we simply have to accept that change happens. They keep moving the cheese. Nothing in the world around you is going to stay the same. Whether it's the technology, whether it's the way we do business, whether it's the way we work. And we have seen that now more than ever, certainly with the pandemic, where most of us had to pivot how we do business, how we did our jobs, where we did our jobs, how it is that we did school. We had to pivot as things were constantly changing around us. So we simply have to accept that change is constant, change is going to happen. And by virtue of just acknowledging that, then it helps you to be less perturbed when change happens. The second thing that Johnson recommends that you do is that you anticipate change. And to anticipate change, you have to get ready for change to happen. So yes, we know that change is going to happen, but how can you prepare yourself to ensure that you can deal with the change when it comes around? And if you think about it, even professionally, you know that technology is constantly changing around you. So if you work in the IT field or any field at all, I, for instance, work in learning and development. And one of the things I have to do is I have to keep abreast of what's happening in my industry and ensure that I have the skills and competencies that are going to enable me to continue to do my job well. So I can't wait until a time comes when I'm required to do something to go learn it, because in those instances, it may not be, I may be late, or I may struggle more in making the change because I wasn't ready. So you want to anticipate change in your life, and you want to think ahead, and you want to plan ahead for dealing with change. So that's the second tip for dealing with change, anticipating it. The third thing you want to do is monitor change. By virtue of the fact that change is constantly happening around you, you want to smell the cheese, you want to assess your relationships, you want to see how are things going, do we need to change anything, you want to check in with your supervisor to find out how it is that things are going, if there are any other ways that you can be supporting him or her. You want to constantly be thinking ahead. You want to be able to ensure that you're aware of what is happening in your world so that there are no surprises when they come. The next thing you want to do, and the fourth tip offered by Spencer Johnson in his book, is that you want to adapt to change quickly. So rather than holding on to the status quo, rather than holding on to your preferences in terms of how you want it done, how you prefer doing it, you like that system better than the other system, and so on and so forth, let go of that. Let go of the status quo. And the sooner you let go of the status quo and be open and ready to accept the changes that are happening, is the easier and the quicker you're going to move forward and make the change. And if you think about it, even at work, when they change systems in terms of how we do just about everything, if you were to stand around and complain about the fact that this is changing and you prefer this and so on and so forth, all you do is get more frustrated because they aren't going to change the system just for you. So you want to adapt to change as quickly. Don't be accused of being resistant. Don't be accused of being somebody who gets in the way of progress or moving forward. The other and fifth tip that Johnson mentions is what you want to change. No one can stay in the same state and shape as they've always been. Even in terms of learning and growth and ongoing professional development or personal development, if we're not constantly seeking to learn and to improve ourselves, then we're not going to grow in our relationships. We're not going to grow in our work. We're not going to be able to address the things we don't do so well and even continue to improve on the things that we do well. So you want to ensure that you are moving with the change and that you're constantly putting yourself in a position where you are changing and you are evolving to becoming a better version of yourself. The other thing, or the sixth tip that Spencer Johnson offers up, is that you want to enjoy the change. Yes, we know that change is difficult. Yes, we know that change is hard. Yes, we know that change takes time. But how are you enjoying the process? Are you acknowledging your growth? Are you celebrating those small wins? So yes, you may not necessarily have developed the skills to the point to where you want them to go. You may not have completely changed all your habits, but are you enjoying the progress you're making, the steps that you're taking day by day, step by step? You want to make sure that you're celebrating and recognizing your achievements and the progress you're making as you change. You want to enjoy the change. And then the seventh tip that he offers up is that you have to be ready and to quickly change again and again. So you have gone through the process of ensuring that you upskill yourself and you know how to use a new computer system, or you have new skills. But guess what? The cycle is going to start again where there's a change in the environment. And as a result of the change in the environment, you're going to be required to adapt again. You're going to have to learn another skill. You're going to have to learn another system. So change is going to come at you over and over again. And you have to stay ready. You have to be adaptable. You have to make sure that you're in a position where you don't get stuck and frustrated and stressed about why are they changing and what is unfair and playing the victim game or playing the blame game. That's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you stay ready by acknowledging that change is going to happen, by anticipating the change, monitoring the change, adapting quickly, enjoying the process as you go along, and just making sure that you're able to do it again and again. So those are 7 tips that Spencer Johnson offers that we can use to get better at dealing with change. If any of those tips resonated with you, leave me a comment in the comment section below. Remember to like and subscribe to the video. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, it's a learning life for real.